My name is Leo, I'm 23, and I work the graveyard shift at a gas station on the edge of a quiet Pennsylvania suburb. Life moves at a slow, predictable pace out here. I guess you could say the same about me. Methodical, quiet, and a creature of habit. I've always found comfort in that rhythm. My days and nights flow into one another without any major disruptions or theatrics. And that's precisely the way I've engineered my world to be. The overnight hours are a perfect fit for my personality. I spend the time between sunset and sunrise restocking the coolers, mopping the floors, and making small talk with the occasional trucker or insomniac looking for a late-night snack. I rent a small apartment by myself, tucked away above a laundromat that hums quietly through the floorboards. It's nothing extravagant, but it's my sanctuary. It has all the essentials: a galley kitchen, a bed that's seen better days, and an abundance of solitude that allows my thoughts to drift when the silence of the shift becomes too loud. Most people my age find my contentment with this lifestyle baffling. But honestly, I'm happy in my own company. There's a security in the predictable cycle of my life, a feeling of being grounded and safe. I don't have a large circle of friends, but the one person I can always count on is Chris, who's been my closest companion since we were navigating the awkwardness of high school together. Chris is my exact counterpart. He's the same age, but he's boisterous and thrives in the spotlight, always the center of attention with a quick joke and an easy laugh that draws people in. It's a mystery to many how two people so different could be such steadfast friends, but our dynamic just clicks. We create a sort of equilibrium for each other. He nudges me out of my shell when I retreat too far, and I offer a dose of reality when his ambitions get the better of him. He still lives just a few streets over, in the same suburban house he was raised in. His mother, Sarah, still occupies the family home, a charming place with a well-tended garden and rose bushes that climb the front porch trellis. Sarah is in her early 40s, though a stranger would never guess it. She possesses a natural grace, a quiet magnetism that commands attention without demanding it. She works as a librarian at the local public library, a cherished figure among the town's book lovers. She's soft-spoken, with a gentle demeanor and a quiet strength that I've always admired. Not long ago, Sarah went through a difficult separation. Chris mentioned it to me one evening after we'd spent hours playing video games in his basement. I can still recall the subtle sorrow in his expression as he talked about his mom's loneliness, how he was worried about her adjusting to the quiet house all by herself. He didn't have to elaborate. I had already seen the shift in her. Before, Sarah would always greet me with a bright, welcoming smile whenever I came over, but lately those smiles seemed more fleeting. The warmth in her voice was still there, but it was muted, shadowed by a quiet sadness. I would see her from time to time at the station, grabbing a coffee or a newspaper. She was always polite, always composed, but undeniably weary. Tonight was no different, or at least that's what I initially believed. It was just after 1 in the morning when Sarah's sedan pulled up to one of the pumps. Through the large plate glass window, I watched her get out, looking flustered as she tried the handle of her car door several times. She peered into the window, her shoulders slumping in defeat. A moment later, the bell on the station door chimed, and she walked in, a sheepish look on her face. She wore a simple cardigan over a floral dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a loose bun, with stray wisps framing her face. She looked exhausted, her usually vibrant blue eyes clouded with fatigue. Still, there was an elegance about her that was impossible to ignore. "Hi, Leo," she said, her voice a quiet melody despite her obvious frustration. "Evening, Sarah," I replied, offering a reassuring smile. "Looks like you're having a rough night." She let out a soft, exasperated sigh. "You have no idea. I was so focused on getting my wallet out that I locked my keys in the car. It's been one of those days." "Happens to the best of us," I said, already grabbing my jacket from the hook behind the counter. "Let me see if I can help." She looked surprised. "Oh, you don't have to do that. I can call a locksmith." I waved off her protest. "It's a slow night. Besides, they'll charge you a fortune. Let me give it a shot first." Outside, the air was cool and damp. I worked for a few minutes with a tension rod and a wedge, a trick I'd learned from my dad, who was a mechanic. Sarah stood beside me, hugging her arms against the chill, watching with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "Chris always says you can fix anything," she remarked quietly. I felt a slight warmth creep up my neck at the comment. He gives me too much credit. I'm just good at tinkering. With a final, careful maneuver, I heard the satisfying click of the lock disengaging. I opened the door for her, a small smile playing on my lips. "There you go." Relief washed over her face, so profound it seemed to erase some of her exhaustion. "Leo, thank you. You're a lifesaver." "Any time," I said, stepping back as she retrieved her keys from the ignition. As she stood up, she paused, her expression turning more serious. "He talks about you a lot, you know," she mentioned, her voice soft. "Chris, he values your friendship more than you probably realize." I shrugged, feeling a familiar mix of bashfulness and pride. "Chris is my brother. I'm lucky to have him." She hesitated for a moment, her gaze holding mine. "He's the lucky one," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's good to have someone so dependable in your life. Sometimes I wish—" She trailed off, shaking her head as if to clear a thought too vulnerable to share. I didn't push. Instead, as she paid for her gas inside, I found myself joking to lighten the heavy mood that had settled between us. "Well, if you get locked out again," I said with a laugh, "just sleep at my place. It'll be cheaper than a locksmith." She looked up from her purse, a faint but genuine smile gracing her lips. For the first time that night, I'll keep that in mind. "Thanks again, Leo." As she walked out, the bell chimed and her car soon disappeared into the night. I stood there for a moment, a strange feeling settling in my chest, a wish that I could do more to lift the quiet burden she so clearly carried. I dismissed the thought and went back to my duties, mopping the floor and restocking the chips, my mind occasionally drifting back to the brief, charged encounter. A few weeks passed and life returned to its normal, placid rhythm. I didn't see much of Sarah, and I assumed the incident had faded into a simple memory of neighborly kindness. But as I was getting ready to close up one Saturday night, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen and saw her name. A sense of unease washed over me. "Sarah," I answered, my voice laced with concern. "Leo." Her voice was trembling, thin and strained with anxiety. "I am so sorry to bother you so late, but I'm locked out of my house. I went for a walk and I think I dropped my keys somewhere. I've looked everywhere. Chris is out of town and I didn't know who else to call." The raw vulnerability in her tone made my heart clench. The fragility in her voice was unnerving. I had never heard Sarah sound so lost, so utterly defeated. She had always projected an aura of quiet competence, of someone who could handle anything life threw at her. Yet here she was, her composure shattered, asking me for help. "Don't you worry about a thing, Sarah," I told her instantly, already grabbing my keys and jacket from behind the counter. "I'll be right there. Are you on the porch?" "Yes," she whispered, a wave of relief audible in her shaky breath. "Please hurry. It's getting cold." "I'm on my way," I said, my voice firm and reassuring. "You're going to be okay." After hanging up, I quickly shut down the lights, locked the station door, and jogged to my old pickup truck. My heart was pounding in my chest, a confusing cocktail of worry and a powerful, instinctual need to protect her. I had never imagined feeling this way, had never thought Sarah, of all people, would ever need me like this. But as I turned the ignition and sped through the sleeping streets toward the quiet lane where she was waiting, I had a profound sense that the carefully drawn lines of my world were about to be irrevocably redrawn. The streets were deserted, the suburban homes dark and silent behind their drawn curtains. My knuckles were white as I gripped the steering wheel, my truck eating up the miles of winding back roads. Sarah's trembling voice was a constant echo in my mind, every fragile word carving itself into my thoughts. I'd never witnessed her so exposed, so deeply unsettled. My pulse quickened, a silent command to push the accelerator just a little harder. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 minutes, I saw the familiar outline of her house. Her porch light cast a lonely yellow glow, and I could just make out her silhouette huddled on the top step. I parked my truck at the curb and quickly got out. As I approached, the reality of the scene hit me. Sarah was wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering visibly as she sat on the cold concrete. She looked up as I walked up the path, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Leo," she breathed, her voice cracking with relief as she stood up. "Hey," I said softly, my voice gentle so as not to startle her further. "Let's see what we can do." I spent the next 20 minutes methodically checking every window and door, looking for any possible point of entry. But the house was sealed tight. There was no way in without breaking something, and I wasn't about to do that. Defeated, I turned back to her. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her shoulders slumped, the picture of despair. "I'm so sorry to have dragged you out here for this," she whispered, her gaze fixed on the ground. "This is just humiliating." "Don't say that," I said, my voice firm but kind. "It's not your fault. It's just bad luck." I looked at her, shivering in the late-night chill, and my mind went back to the joke I'd made weeks ago. The words left my mouth before I could second-guess them. "Look, you can't stay out here all night. The offer still stands. You can stay at my place." She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "Leo, I couldn't possibly impose like that." "It's not an imposition," I insisted gently. "It's a warm room and a safe place to sleep, that's all. We can call a locksmith first thing in the morning." She hesitated for a long moment, weighing her options. Finally, she gave a slow, reluctant nod. I led her to my truck, opening the passenger door and waiting until she was settled inside before walking around to the driver's side. As I started the engine, the cab was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the soft sound of her breathing. The road stretched out before us, dark and empty, as we made our way toward my apartment. After several long, quiet minutes, Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I really am sorry for all this trouble, Leo." I glanced over at her, her profile softly illuminated by the glow of the dashboard. For the first time, I saw past the composed librarian, past my best friend's mother, and saw the resilient woman beneath the fragile surface. "You didn't cause any trouble," I assured her, my voice warm with sincerity. "I'm just glad you called me. I would never have forgiven myself if I found out you'd spent the night out here alone." A small, grateful smile touched her lips, and I saw the tension in her shoulders relax just a fraction. "Ever since the separation," she confessed, her voice gaining a little strength, "I feel like I'm constantly fumbling, like I've lost some essential part of myself. Tonight just feels like proof of how alone I really am." "You're not alone, Sarah," I responded, my eyes fixed on the road but my voice filled with conviction. "Chris loves you more than anything, and I care about you, too." She turned her head to look at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes that quickly melted into something softer, warmer. "Thank you, Leo," she whispered. "That means more to me than you know." A comfortable quiet settled between us once more, but this time it wasn't heavy with tension. It was gentle, filled with an unspoken understanding. As we pulled up to my apartment building, I felt a strange tightening in my chest. Something significant had shifted between us tonight. A boundary had been quietly dissolved, and I had no idea what that meant or where it might lead. I led her up the creaky flight of stairs to my small apartment. It was sparse but clean, a reflection of my own life. She stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room as I turned on a lamp, casting a soft glow over the space. "It's not much, but it's home," I said with a small shrug. "It's lovely," she replied, though her voice was still strained. I made her a cup of chamomile tea and we sat at my small kitchen table, the silence punctuated by the hum of the refrigerator. I offered her a clean t-shirt and a pair of my old sweatpants to sleep in, which she accepted with a grateful nod. As she went to the bathroom to change, I set up the pull-out couch with fresh sheets and a pillow. When she emerged, my